The morning it happened, the house felt colder than usual. Not because of the weather, but because of what my husband Ryan had become once. He was the man who used to bring me coffee in bed, kiss my forehead, and say, "You make my world lighter, Emma." Now, he barely looked at me unless he wanted something. That day, I woke up early, humming softly as I packed our daughter's lunch. I tried to stay cheerful, even though Ryan had been snapping at me for days. The air between us had been tense ever since he'd gotten that promotion. Power looked good on him, but it turned him into someone I didn't recognize. "Emma!" he barked from the living room. I flinched, holding my breath. "Yes?" "Did you pay the electricity bill?" "I did, yesterday." His jaw tightened. "With which card?" I blinked. "Ours, the joint one." He smirked, cold, mocking. "Ours? You mean mine, Emma. You haven't earned a dime in 6 years." The words sliced through me like glass. Once upon a time, I used to work as a designer. But after our daughter was born, Ryan insisted I stay home. "You don't need to work," he'd said, kissing my forehead. "Just take care of our family. I'll handle everything." And I believed him. But now, that promise had become a weapon. "Ryan," I whispered, "I just paid the bills." "What's wrong with that?" "What's wrong," he snapped, standing up, "is that you think you can keep spending my money like some charity case." He walked to the counter, grabbed my purse, and emptied it onto the table. Cards, coins, receipts, all spilled out. Then, in one swift move, he snatched up my bank cards and snapped one in half. "Ryan," I gasped. His eyes were wild. "You want to live without my help? Fine, live without my money. Let's see how long your independence lasts." He stormed out, leaving me frozen, clutching the broken plastic. The silence afterward was unbearable. Our daughter Lily peeked from her room, holding her teddy bear. "Mommy, why was Daddy yelling?" I forced a smile, even though my hands were shaking. "He's just upset, sweetie." "It's okay." But it wasn't okay. Not even close. When Ryan returned that evening, he didn't look at me once. He dropped his keys, ate dinner in silence, and went straight to bed. I sat by the window, staring at the lights outside, wondering how love had turned into control, how promises of forever had become chains around my wrists. The next morning, I opened my laptop, desperate to figure out how to survive. Every card, every account frozen. He'd actually done it. Even the grocery app declined my order. Lily's lunchbox sat empty on the counter. I pressed my lips together, refusing to cry. That's when I noticed something. A dusty old sewing machine Ryan had bought me years ago when I told him I wanted to design clothes again. He'd laughed at the time, saying, "Cute hobby. But don't waste your time. Now, that hobby might just save me." I pulled it out, wiped it clean, and whispered, "Let's see if you still work." For the next few hours, I stitched old fabrics together, turning Lily's worn-out dresses into little tote bags. At first, the stitches were crooked. My fingers fumbled. But by noon, I'd made 3 beautiful pieces. Then an idea sparked. I snapped a photo, posted it on social media with the caption, "Made with love and second chances. DM if you'd like one. I didn't expect anything." But within an hour, my phone buzzed. New message. "These are gorgeous. Can I order 2? My heart jumped. It wasn't much, just $25, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt alive. When Ryan came home that evening, he noticed me smiling. "What's so funny?" he muttered. "Nothing," I said casually, hiding my phone, but he wasn't stupid. He leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "What are you up to?" I met his gaze for the first time in days. "Living without your money," I said softly. His expression twisted, part confusion, part anger. "We'll see how long that lasts," he said, walking away. But what he didn't know was that it had already begun. That night, after Lily fell asleep, I sat in my room surrounded by fabric and thread, working until my eyes blurred. Every stitch was a quiet rebellion. Every piece I sold was another breath of freedom. And as the clock struck midnight, I whispered to myself, "Let him regret this." The next morning, I woke up before dawn. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. For the first time in months, I had something of my own to wake up for. The house was quiet, except for the soft hum of the sewing machine as I worked on a new batch of tote bags. Each piece carried a piece of my story, scraps of old curtains, leftover ribbons, and bits of courage stitched together. By the time Lily padded into the kitchen in her tiny pajamas, rubbing her eyes, I had finished 3 new designs. She gasped when she saw them. "Mommy, did you make these?" I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes, sweetie. Do you like them?" "They're pretty. You should sell them in my school." Her innocent words hit me like a spark of possibility. School, parents, teachers, they were all potential customers. I packed her lunch: a peanut butter sandwich, apple slices, and a handmade note that said, "Mommy loves you." Then, as I walked her to the bus stop, I felt something inside me shift. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was starting over. After dropping Lily off, I walked to the town market with a tote bag full of my creations. I didn't have a stall or even a table, but I stood near the flower vendor, smiling at passers-by. At first, people just glanced at me and kept walking. My cheeks burned. I almost packed up and went home, but then an older woman stopped. "These are adorable," she said, picking up a pink one. "Did you make them yourself?" "Yes," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "All handmade." She smiled. "My granddaughter would love one." "How much?" $10. She handed me the bill without hesitation. "You've got talent, dear. Don't stop." That single moment felt bigger than the money itself. Someone believed in me, and that belief, small as it was, lit a fire inside me. By noon, I had sold 5 bags. My hands trembled as I counted the cash, $50. It wasn't much compared to Ryan's paycheck, but it was mine. Every single dollar. When Ryan came home that evening, his mood was foul again. He threw his jacket on the sofa and loosened his tie. "What's for dinner?" He grumbled. "Pasta," I said quietly, stirring the sauce. He sniffed. "Smells burnt," I bit my tongue. Before, I would have apologized. Now I didn't even look up. He dropped into his chair. "So, Emma? Run out of my money yet?" I glanced at him, then smiled faintly. "Not yet. I've been making some of my own," he frowned. "What do you mean?" "I sold a few handmade bags today." Ryan's laugh was cruel and sharp. "Bags, Emma, please. That's pocket change." "Maybe," I said, keeping my voice calm. "But it's a start." He leaned forward, smirking. "Don't get any ideas about becoming some kind of businesswoman. I don't want people thinking I can't provide for my wife." I met his gaze. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before cutting off my cards." His smirk vanished. "Watch your tone." For the first time in years, I didn't. I simply turned off the stove, served the pasta, and said, "Dinner's ready." That night, as Ryan snored beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The silence of the room no longer scared me, it comforted me. Because in that silence, I could finally hear myself. I remembered the girl I used to be, the one who dreamed of opening her own boutique, the one who believed in love and creativity, not money and control. I whispered into the dark. She's still here. The following days blurred into a rhythm of creation. Morning school drop-offs, long hours of sewing, evening sales in the market. Word spread quickly. One woman tagged my designs online, calling them the prettiest eco bags in town. Soon, I had more orders than I could finish. I started waking up earlier, stitching until my fingers ached. Ryan barely noticed. Or maybe he pretended not to. He still tossed his wallet on the counter each night, as if daring me to beg for help. But I didn't need to anymore. One Friday evening, Lily came home waving a colorful flyer. "Mommy, there's a school fair next weekend." "They said parents can sell stuff too." I took the paper from her hands, scanning it. "A school fair. A real chance. Would you like to help Mommy sell the bags?" I asked. Her eyes lit up. "Yes, I'll be your helper." We spent the next week preparing, cutting, sewing, decorating tags. The house was a mess of fabric and laughter, and for once, I didn't care. The morning of the fair, I dressed in my favorite blue dress, the one I hadn't worn since Ryan's promotion dinner years ago. When he saw me, his expression darkened. "Where are you going?" "To Lily's school. I'm selling my bags," he scoffed. "You're seriously doing this?" "Yes," I said simply, grabbing my tote. "Wish me luck." He didn't, but I didn't need him to. At the fair, parents stopped by my little table one after another. Children tugged at their mother's sleeves, asking for the colorful bags. I sold out within 3 hours. Lily squealed and threw her arms around me. "Mommy, you did it!" I laughed through tears, hugging her tight. We did it, sweetie. As I packed up, I noticed one of the teachers taking pictures of my display. Your work is lovely, she said. Would you be interested in providing gift bags for our charity event next month? I blinked. Yes, of course, she smiled. Perfect. I'll email you the details. And just like that, the seed I had planted had begun to grow roots. That night, Ryan came home to find Lily and me dancing in the kitchen, the radio blaring. He stood at the door, frowning. What's going on? I had a good day, I said. I sold everything. He crossed his arms. So what, you made a few $100? I smiled. 800, actually. He went silent. For a split second, I saw something flicker in his eyes, regret, or maybe fear, because for the first time, he realized I didn't need him anymore. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. That was strange. Ryan never made coffee. He stood in the kitchen, scrolling through his phone, pretending to be casual. Morning, he said, voice tight. Morning, I replied, cautious. I saw your little business thing online. He avoided my eyes. Looks like people actually like your stuff. I kept my tone light. They do. I've got more orders coming in this week. He gave a short laugh, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. Well, don't let it distract you from your real responsibilities. I raised an eyebrow. My real responsibilities? He gestured around the kitchen. The house, dinner, laundry. You know, the things I actually pay for. There it was. The reminder, the control. But this time, it didn't sting. Don't worry, I said, smiling. I can handle both. Ryan didn't respond. He just grabbed his briefcase and walked out, slamming the door a little too hard. That day, I worked harder than ever. I stayed up late, filling orders and organizing fabric piles. I even set up an online page for my business, Lillian Lace Handmade. The name came from my daughter, of course, because she was my why. By the end of the week, my phone buzzed nonstop with notifications, messages, compliments, and new customers. Even the teacher from the fair sent an email confirming the charity event order. I couldn't stop smiling. But success, it seemed, didn't sit well with Ryan. He began coming home later and later. Sometimes I'd find receipts in his jacket pockets from fancy restaurants, the kind we used to go to together. When I asked, he snapped, business dinners. Except business dinners didn't explain the lipstick stains or perfume that wasn't mine. Still, I said nothing. Because silence was power now. One night, as I sat at the dining table packing orders, Ryan walked in, reeking of alcohol. He glanced at the boxes stacked neatly beside me. So, you think you're some kind of entrepreneur now? He slurred. I didn't look up. Something like that, he smirked. Cute. You really believe people will keep buying your little crafts? Yes, I said simply. Because I work hard. And because I care, his smirk faltered. Don't get smart with me, Emma. I finally met his eyes. I'm not. I'm just telling the truth. For a moment, he stared at me, jaw tight, like he didn't recognize the woman sitting in front of him. Then he muttered something under his breath and stumbled to the bedroom. The next morning, I checked my bank account. The balance was growing, slowly but steadily. I even managed to save a few hundred in a separate account, a secret one, just mine. It wasn't just money. It was freedom, and freedom, I was learning, was addictive. One evening, Lily came home with a drawing from school. It showed 3 stick figures, me, her, and Ryan. But something caught my eye. Ryan's figure was drawn far away, standing near a pile of papers labeled money. Lily and I were together, surrounded by colorful bags. Why is Daddy standing so far? I asked gently. Lily shrugged. Because he's always gone. You're the one who plays with me. My throat tightened. I kissed her forehead. Thank you, sweetheart. When she went to bed, I stared at that drawing for a long time. Kids see the truth before adults do. That weekend, I had my first big delivery, 30 custom bags for the charity event. I borrowed a friend's car, loaded the boxes, and drove to the school hall. When I arrived, I saw teachers and parents gathering around, admiring the designs. They're beautiful. One woman said, "Where did you learn to make these?" "I taught myself," I said proudly. A local blogger happened to be there and snapped a few photos for her article about the event. By the next day, my inbox was flooded with messages, orders, collaborations. Even a boutique wanted to stock my bags. It felt unreal. That night, Ryan noticed me sitting at the dining table again, typing on my laptop. "What are you working on now?" he asked, tone sharp. "Emails, orders, business stuff," he scoffed. "Business stuff? Emma, you're getting carried away. Don't forget who keeps the roof over your head." I closed the laptop. "I haven't forgotten. But maybe you should remember who keeps the heart in this home." His face darkened. "Are you implying I don't care about this family?" "I'm saying," I said softly, "you stopped acting like you did a long time ago." He stood there for a moment, silent and red-faced. Then, with a frustrated grunt, he stormed out again. The sound of the door slamming didn't scare me anymore. It sounded like space for me to breathe. The next morning, I opened my messages and froze. There it was, an interview request. A local news site wanted to feature Lillian Lace Handmade as a small business success story. My heart raced. This wasn't just about bags anymore. It was about taking back my life, piece by piece, thread by thread. When Ryan came home that night, I waited for the right moment. "I have some news," I said. He looked up from his phone. "What now?" "A journalist wants to interview me about the business." He blinked, surprised. "Interview? Like, on camera?" "Probably. They'll come here tomorrow." His jaw tightened. "You can't let them come here." "Why not?" "Because I don't want people knowing my wife is hawking bags online like she's desperate." I crossed my arms. "I'm not desperate, Ryan. I'm determined." He sneered. "You're embarrassing me." I met his glare steadily. "Then maybe you should start acting like someone to be proud of." The next day, the journalist arrived with a small camera crew. Ryan wasn't home. I made sure of that. The interview went beautifully. I talked about my journey, my challenges, and how I turned pain into purpose. They even filmed Lily helping me tie ribbons on the bags. When the article came out, it spread like wildfire. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments, all celebrating courage and self-reliance. My small business exploded overnight. Orders poured in faster than I could keep up, and when Ryan saw it, his silence was deafening. When Ryan finally came home that evening, the first thing he said wasn't, "Congratulations." It was, "So now the whole world knows our private business?" I looked up from my laptop, where I was responding to another wave of orders. "They know my business," I said calmly. "Not our marriage." He set his briefcase down with a thud. "You've humiliated me, Emma. My colleagues saw that article." "Then they also saw your wife building something from nothing," I replied, my voice steady. His jaw flexed. "You're not listening. People think I can't provide for you, that you're struggling." I stood, folding my arms. "We were struggling, not because of money, but because of how you treated me." For a moment, Ryan had no response. His face flushed, and his eyes darted toward the kitchen counter where the newspaper sat, the same one with my photo and headline, "Local Mom Turns Pain into Power." That night, he didn't eat dinner. He went straight to the bedroom, slamming the door so hard that a picture frame rattled on the wall. I sighed, sat down at the table again, and continued packing the latest orders. Each bag I sealed felt like another piece of my independence stitched back together. Later, when I finally crawled into bed, Ryan was pretending to sleep. His breathing was too controlled, too sharp. I whispered into the dark, "You don't scare me anymore." For the first time, the silence that followed didn't feel heavy. It felt peaceful. Over the next few weeks, my business grew faster than I ever imagined. I hired 2 women from the neighborhood to help with sewing and packaging. We laughed, shared stories, and worked side by side late into the night. For once, the house felt alive. And Ryan hated it. He started finding reasons to criticize everything I did. "The house is a mess. You're ignoring Lily. You think you're some kind of celebrity now?" I'd learned to stay quiet, not because I was afraid, but because I was done feeding his bitterness. Then one Friday afternoon, I received an invitation that made my heart race. A women's entrepreneurship group wanted me to speak at their upcoming event about resilience, business, and self-worth. When I showed the invitation to Ryan, he scoffed. "Public speaking now? What's next, a book deal?" Maybe, I said with a smile. He threw his hands up. You're impossible. No, I said softly. I'm finally possible. That night, after Lily went to bed, Ryan poured himself a drink. I want to talk, he said, sitting across from me at the dining table. Okay. He leaned back, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. I didn't mean to, take things so far. Cutting the cards, yelling. I just wanted control, I finished for him. He flinched. I was scared. You didn't need me anymore. I met his eyes. Needing someone isn't the same as being owned by them. For a moment, he looked small, like a man who had just realized the cost of his pride. Days passed. I prepared for the speaking event with nervous excitement. I practiced my lines in front of the mirror, using the same determination that once kept me going through the nights when Ryan's words made me feel worthless. On the morning of the event, I put on a simple white dress and tied my hair in a low bun. Lily hugged me before I left. You're gonna do great, Mommy. Her faith in me was my strength. When I stepped on stage, the lights blinded me for a moment. Then I saw them, rows of women, some young, some old, all with that same quiet fire in their eyes. I took a deep breath and spoke from the heart. I used to believe strength meant staying silent, but I've learned that strength means speaking, even when your voice shakes. It means choosing to build, even after someone tried to break you. When the applause came, it was thunderous. Tears blurred my vision. Afterward, a woman approached me with a business card. She was from a small investors group that supported local creators. We'd love to collaborate, she said. You have something special. When I came home that evening, I found Ryan sitting on the couch with Lily. He looked up, guilt flickering in his eyes. I watched your speech, he said quietly. Someone shared it online. I froze. You did? He nodded slowly. You were incredible, Emma. For the first time in years, I saw something genuine in his expression, admiration, maybe even regret. But I didn't say anything, because I'd learned that words mean nothing without change. Over the next few days, Ryan started trying. He helped Lily with homework. He cooked dinner once, burned it, of course, but it made her laugh so hard she nearly cried. He even brought me flowers one evening. Peace offering, he said awkwardly. I accepted them with a polite smile. Thank you. But deep down, I knew something he didn't. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And I hadn't forgotten the night he shouted, "Live without my money." I had lived without it. And now I was thriving. A week later, my business reached a milestone, 10,000 online followers, and a flood of international orders. I was featured in a local magazine, smiling next to rows of handmade bags. The title read, From Rock Bottom to Rising Star, The Woman Who Rebuilt Herself. That night, Ryan poured himself another drink, but his eyes were glassy, not angry, just hollow. He said, You don't even need me anymore, do you? I looked at him for a long time and replied, I did once. But then you taught me how to live without you. The next morning, I woke up early to check my orders before Lily's school run. The house was quiet, too quiet. Ryan wasn't in bed. His side was cold, untouched. I walked to the kitchen and saw him sitting at the table, staring at his phone. He looked up as I entered, eyes red-rimmed and tired. Emma, he began, his voice rough. I think I've made a huge mistake. I didn't answer. Instead, I poured myself a cup of coffee and waited. I've been thinking, he continued, about how I treated you. About everything. You didn't deserve that. It was strange hearing those words from him, words I'd wanted to hear for years. But now they sounded empty. Ryan, I said softly, do you want to apologize because you truly regret it or because you're losing control? He looked at me, startled, like he hadn't expected me to call him out. I just want things back the way they were, he said finally. I shook my head. The way they were almost destroyed me. He fell silent. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the faint clink of my spoon in the mug. Over the next few weeks, Ryan tried to fix what was already beyond repair. He started showing up at my studio, offering to help package orders, sweeping floors that didn't need sweeping. He'd make coffee for me in the mornings, sometimes waiting with 2 cups ready before I even came downstairs. But every time he smiled, it looked forced, the kind of smile that hides panic. Then one evening, he came home looking defeated. "I got called into HR today," he said, sinking into the couch. I glanced up. "Why?" he hesitated. "Apparently the company's restructuring. My position might be redundant." I blinked. "Ryan? The man who once bragged that his job was untouchable?" "I'm sorry," I said, genuinely. He nodded slowly, rubbing his temples. "It's just ironic, isn't it? You're rising, and I'm falling apart." I wanted to comfort him. But part of me knew this was the same man who once told me I was nothing without his money. Now, he was learning the truth the hard way. A few days later, Lily came running into my studio. "Mommy, Daddy's on the phone with Grandma." "He's crying." I froze mid-stitch, the needle hovering above the fabric. When I entered the living room, Ryan was slumped on the couch, phone pressed to his ear. He looked broken. "Mom, I don't know what's happening," he said. "Everything's slipping away. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought she'd come back to me." I stood quietly in the doorway. For a second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. When he hung up, he looked at me helplessly. "Emma, can we please talk?" I nodded, sitting opposite him. He took a deep breath. "I've lost everything I thought made me strong, my job, my authority, my confidence. But watching you succeed, it's made me realize what strength really looks like." I listened carefully, arms folded. He swallowed hard. "I was cruel, arrogant. I thought providing money made me powerful. But you," he paused, shaking his head, "you've done more without me than I ever did with everything." For the first time, he wasn't angry. He was honest, vulnerable. "Still," I said, "that realization doesn't erase the damage." "I know," he whispered, "but I'd like to make things right, even if we can't be what we were." That night I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker across the road. Was it possible for people to truly change? Or was Ryan only trying because he'd lost control of the narrative? I thought about every moment he'd humiliated me, every night I'd cried quietly in that same house. Then I thought about Lily, about the kind of example I wanted to set for her. I didn't want her to see forgiveness as weakness. I wanted her to see boundaries as strength. The next morning, I packed 2 suitcases, one for me, one for Lily. When Ryan came downstairs, confused, I looked him straight in the eyes. "I'm taking Lily to my sister's for a while," I said. "We need space. I need to think." He froze. "Emma, please." "Don't go. Not like this." I took a deep breath. "I'm not leaving to hurt you. I'm leaving to heal." He stepped forward, his voice trembling. "I'll change, I swear. I'll do anything." I stopped him with a gentle but firm tone. "I don't need promises, Ryan. I just need peace." I picked up the suitcases and walked to the door. As I opened it, he whispered behind me, "I regret everything." "Emma," I paused, turned back slightly and said, "I know, but regret isn't the same as change." Then I closed the door behind me. 2 months later, I stood in front of a bright blue banner that read, "Women Who Rebuilt Themselves." Annual conference. My name was listed as a keynote speaker. Lily sat in the front row, waving proudly as I stepped onto the stage. I took a deep breath and began. "I once thought survival meant clinging to someone else's approval. But true survival is learning to thrive even when no one believes in you." Applause filled the hall. Later, as I walked off stage, my phone buzzed. "A message from Ryan. I saw your speech online. You were incredible. I don't expect forgiveness. Just thank you for showing me what real strength looks like." I smiled faintly, typed back just 2 words, "You're welcome." Then I turned off my phone, took Lily's hand, and walked out into the sunlight, free, whole, and finally, completely myself. 6 months later, the air in the small coastal town smelled like salt and second chances. Emma and Lily had settled into a modest apartment overlooking the sea. The rent was lower than what they used to pay, the furniture second-hand, but to Emma, it all felt alive. For the first time in years, she woke up to silence that didn't feel heavy. She opened the curtains each morning to watch the sunrise paint the horizon orange, reminding herself that healing takes time, and so does rebuilding. Her embroidery business had turned into something much bigger than she'd ever imagined. Her Bloom and Thread online store now shipped custom handmade pieces across the country. What started as a hobby had become her freedom. One evening, she received an email from a women's magazine titled Empowerment Feature Inquiry. She clicked it, curious. Dear Emma Roberts, we came across your online shop and your conference speech. We'd love to feature your story in our next issue, From Financial Control to Independence. Kindly let us know if you're interested. Her hand trembled slightly as she read. This was what survival looked like. Not revenge, not shouting, just quietly, consistently, rising without permission. She smiled and replied with a simple, I'd be honored. 2 weeks later, the article went live. The headline read, From Cutoff to Self-Made, How One Woman Sewed Her Way to Freedom. Comments poured in. Women wrote things like, You gave me hope to leave my toxic marriage. Another said, Your strength reminded me that money doesn't define worth. Emma read each message with tears in her eyes. For years, Ryan's voice had echoed in her head, telling her she was useless without him. Now, thousands of strangers were thanking her for proving the opposite. Meanwhile, Ryan's life had taken a very different path. After losing his corporate job, he tried starting a consulting business, but the market didn't care about his arrogance or his past achievements. Clients left, debt rose. He had sold their old house, the one he once called his kingdom. He now lived in a small rented apartment, his pride crumbling each time he opened the fridge and found it almost empty. One rainy night, he saw Emma's face on his phone screen, a suggested video on social media. Emma Roberts on rebuilding after betrayal. He hesitated, then clicked. There she was, confident, graceful, telling her story to a room full of women. When my husband told me to live without his money, she said, smiling slightly, he didn't realize he was freeing me to live with my own strength. The audience laughed softly, then clapped. Ryan watched in silence. His throat tightened. He paused the video halfway, staring at her frozen smile. He muttered, You did it without me. And then, almost whispering, I'm proud of you. It was the first honest thing he'd said in years. A month later, Ryan reached out. Not to apologize, but to return something. He emailed her. Emma, I found some old financial papers in storage, ones I should have given you long ago. I'm not sure if you need them now, but they're yours. Also, thank you for teaching me humility, even if it took losing everything. Emma hesitated before replying, but finally wrote back, Thank you, Ryan. I've already moved on, but I appreciate the gesture. No bitterness, no anger, just peace. That night, she sat on her balcony with Lily, eating ice cream and watching the waves crash below. Mom, Lily said between spoonfuls, are we happy now? Emma smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. Yes, sweetheart, we're happy, and we're free. The next morning, Emma received another email, this one from a university in Seattle. They were hosting a business conference and wanted her as a guest speaker. She stared at the screen, overwhelmed. Her journey, once filled with silence, shame, and fear, was now turning into something that inspired others. That weekend, she took Lily to a nearby park. As they walked, she saw a young woman crying quietly on a bench. Something about her posture reminded Emma of herself years ago. She sat beside her and gently asked, Are you okay? The woman shook her head. My boyfriend just told me I'm nothing without him, that I'll fail without his help. Emma smiled softly. Do you want to know a secret? The woman looked up, eyes red. You'll be amazed, Emma said, how much power you have when you stop believing lies about yourself. The woman blinked, then gave a faint smile. Thank you. I needed to hear that. Emma stood, patting her shoulder. I once needed to hear it too. As she walked away, she realized this was her real victory, not proving Ryan wrong, but becoming the person she'd needed back then. That night, Emma opened her journal and wrote, "Freedom doesn't start when someone gives it to you. It starts the day you decide you deserve better." She closed it, turned off the lamp, and drifted to sleep with peace that no amount of money could ever buy. A year had passed since Ryan's email, a quiet year of healing, rebuilding, and learning that peace didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing not to reopen old wounds. Emma's embroidery business had grown beyond anything she'd dreamed of. She'd hired 2 assistants, moved into a small studio, and even launched a charity fund to help single mothers start micro-businesses. Her life now had purpose, one she had built thread by thread. One morning, she received a call from a production company. "Hi, Mrs. Roberts. We're producing a national TV show called Rebuild Stories of Real Women. We'd love to have you share your journey on air." Emma hesitated. "National TV? That's huge." The producer laughed gently. "Exactly. You've inspired thousands already online. We think your message deserves a bigger stage." After a moment's thought, Emma said, "All right, let's do it." The day of the show arrived. Emma wore a soft blue dress, calm, confident, but not flashy. As the makeup artist brushed light powder across her cheeks, Emma glanced at her reflection. There was no trace of the timid woman she once was, the one who'd flinched when a man shouted or belittled her. Now she saw someone solid, grounded. The host, a warm, kind woman named Carla, welcomed her onto the stage. "Everyone, meet Emma Roberts, a woman whose story went viral after she was told to live without her husband's money, and did so beautifully." Applause filled the studio. Emma smiled humbly. Carla leaned forward. "Emma, take us back to that moment, the day he cut you off." Emma exhaled slowly. "It felt like the world ended. I remember standing in the kitchen, holding a grocery receipt, realizing I couldn't even buy milk for my daughter. But that pain, it became my turning point." The audience listened in silence. "I started small," Emma continued. "Embroidery orders on social media. One sale became 5, then 50. Eventually, I stopped counting sales and started counting blessings." The audience applauded again. Some women wiped tears, but what Emma didn't know was that Ryan was watching. He hadn't planned to, but while flipping through channels at home, he saw her face appear on screen. For a moment, he froze. His chest tightened. There she was, confident, graceful, and more alive than he'd ever seen her. He turned up the volume. "If you're in a relationship where money equals control," Emma said on screen, "remember, no one owns your future. Not your husband, not your fear." Ryan dropped the remote, guilt washing over him like cold rain. He could hear his own voice from the past, angry, cruel, shouting, "Live without my money." And there she was, living more beautifully than ever. When the show ended, Ryan sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he did something he'd never done before. He cried. He opened his phone, typed Emma's name, and found her website. At the bottom, he saw a charity page titled "Bloom for Hope, Helping Women Stand Again." Without thinking, he clicked "Donate" and sent a large amount, anonymously. He didn't do it to win her back. He did it because, for once, he understood what love should have been: giving, not controlling. 2 months later, fate decided their paths would cross again. Emma was invited to a national business gala, a networking event for entrepreneurs. She arrived, greeted by lights, music, and people in elegant attire. She wasn't nervous until she saw a familiar figure across the hall: Ryan. Her breath caught. He looked different, thinner, humbler. The sharpness in his eyes was gone. When he noticed her, he hesitated, then slowly walked over. "Emma," he said quietly. "Ryan." They stood face to face for the first time in years. The air between them carried memories neither could erase. He spoke first. "You look happy." "I am," she said simply. "I saw your TV interview," he continued. "You were Incredible. She smiled faintly. Thank you. He swallowed hard. I know it's late, but I'm sorry for everything. For how I treated you. For the way I made you feel small. Emma looked at him, really looked. There was sincerity in his eyes, but also sadness. I forgave you a long time ago, she said softly. Not for you, for me. Ryan nodded, eyes glistening. I donated to your charity, he admitted. Didn't think you'd know it was me. She smiled. I didn't. But thank you. It's helping women start over, just like I did. They stood in silence for a few seconds. Then Ryan whispered, You really did live without my money. Emma laughed lightly. No, Ryan, I lived without your permission. For the first time, he smiled genuinely, not arrogantly, not bitterly. I'm glad you did. She nodded. So am I. They shook hands, a simple gesture that closed a painful chapter with quiet dignity. That night, Emma stood by the gala's balcony, watching the city lights shimmer. Carla, the TV host, joined her and asked, How does it feel, Emma? Seeing him again? Emma smiled, the cool wind brushing her face. It feels like closure. Like turning the last page of a long, heavy book. Carla nodded. You're helping so many people, you know. I hope so, Emma said softly. If my story teaches one woman to believe in herself, that's enough. When she returned home that night, Lily was waiting up for her. Mom, you were trending again. Everyone loved your speech. Emma laughed and hugged her tightly. Thank you, sweetheart. But the best part isn't the attention. It's knowing we built this life together. Lily grinned. And without Dad's money, right? Emma smiled, brushing her daughter's hair. Exactly. Without anyone's money, just heart, courage, and a needle. Months after the gala, Emma's life continued to bloom like a field after rain. Her small studio had turned into a full-fledged brand. Stitching Hope. Women from across the country joined her initiative, some abandoned, some divorced, some rebuilding from nothing. Every week, Emma hosted workshops where laughter echoed through the room. Thread, fabric, and resilience intertwined, not just in the embroidery, but in the hearts of every woman who sat there stitching her pain into art. One afternoon, Emma received an email from an international NGO. Dear Mrs. Roberts, we've been following your project and would love to partner with you to expand Stitching Hope into developing countries. We believe your story can inspire thousands of women to stand on their own feet. Emma read the message twice, her hands trembling slightly. She had started with a single thread, and now her dream was stretching across borders. That night, she told Lily over dinner. Sweetheart, we might be going to Africa soon. Lily's eyes widened. Africa? For real? Yes, Emma said, smiling. They want to help more women learn embroidery so they can earn their own living. That's so cool, Mom. You're like a hero. Emma chuckled. Not a hero, honey. Just someone who finally believed she could. The trip was life-changing. In a small Kenyan village, Emma sat among women who spoke little English but smiled the same universal smile of hope. They showed her their handmade patterns, colorful, imperfect, but filled with soul. She taught them new stitches. They taught her new strength. At the end of the week, one of the local women hugged her and said in broken English, You come from far, but your heart, same as ours. Tears welled in Emma's eyes. For the first time in her life, she truly felt what freedom meant. Not wealth, not luxury, but connection. When she returned home, media outlets began to notice her global impact. Her story appeared on major news platforms. From rejection to revolution, how one woman empowered thousands. Her inbox overflowed with messages. Some were from struggling mothers, some from young women thanking her for giving them courage. But one message stood out. It was from Ryan. Emma, I saw your latest interview. I can't put into words how proud I am of you. You've become everything I wasn't brave enough to be. Strong, kind, fearless. Thank you for forgiving me, even when I didn't deserve it. If our daughter ever forgets what strength looks like, She just has to look at you. Emma sat quietly after reading it. No anger, no bitterness, just peace. Weeks later, she was invited to speak at a global women's summit. The audience included hundreds of entrepreneurs, activists, and students. As she stepped on stage, applause filled the auditorium. Emma began softly. 3 years ago, my husband shouted at me to live without his money. I thought my life was over. But today, I'm here to tell you, losing someone's money isn't losing your worth. The room fell silent. When someone takes away what they think defines you, that's your moment to redefine yourself. I started with a needle and a dream, and today that dream feeds hundreds of families. Applause thundered. Emma smiled, her eyes glistening. After the speech, as she walked off stage, a young woman approached her, nervous, holding a small embroidered scarf. "Mrs. Roberts?" she said shyly. "I started sewing after watching your story online. I used to think I was worthless, but now I run a small business. My mom says I smile again because of you." Emma hugged her gently. "No, sweetheart. You smiled because of you. You found your strength. I just reminded you it was there." That evening back home, Emma sat with Lily by the window. City lights shimmered below. "Mom," Lily asked softly, "do you ever miss Dad?" Emma paused. "Sometimes, yes. Not who he was, but who I hoped he'd become." "Do you hate him?" Emma smiled faintly. "No, darling. Hate only keeps us tied to pain. I let go so I could rise." Lily leaned on her shoulder. "I want to be like you when I grow up." Emma kissed her forehead. "Then promise me one thing. Never let anyone make you feel small. Not even someone you love, I promise." Years later, Stitching Hope became an international foundation. It sponsored education for thousands of women across continents. Emma's name appeared in magazines, awards, and talk shows. But she never forgot the day she stood in that kitchen, holding a frozen credit card, thinking it was all over. That moment wasn't her ending. It was her beginning. Final YouTube outro. What do you think? Was Ryan's apology enough, or did Emma's success say everything for her? Comment, "I'll build my own life too," if Emma's story inspired you. Don't forget to share and subscribe for more powerful real-life stories about strength, love, and finding freedom.